Thank you. Manjit, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. We're so glad
Good.
to have you here. And I'm sure the women are eager. Like, I've gotten a lot of text messages, DMs. They can't wait to hear you share your story, your success story. You're in trouble today. And they want to learn all the secrets of how you got to where you are right now. So today we're going to have a conversation on the topic rising to the top, succeeding at being an entrepreneur. But before we dive into that conversation, I'm sure you've got some opening remarks, opening comments about today's conference and how you're feeling right now. So I'll allow you to share your opening comment for the next 2 minutes, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Sounds good. Well, I just want to say hello to everybody and thanks for joining us. I know we all have a little bit of Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, whatever it might be, fatigue. So I really do appreciate you taking time this Friday morning, afternoon, depending on where you are in the country, to listen to some of my stories, some of my thoughts. You will very quickly discover I am an open book. I really don't hold much in other than my political views. But other than that, you know what, I always joke with my brother and many others around me that I can't be fired for my opinions or what I say because I own the company. So I can speak freely, and I surely do. And so I hope you know, you enjoy. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to connect with me later if you don't feel like this is the time and the platform to do so, or if you're shy, which I hope you're not. But I look forward to spending time with you guys this afternoon.
Excellent. So to lead us into this conversation, could you please take us into those early days, those years of starting your business? What prompted you actually to be an entrepreneur? Why the choice of beer? Was that
Well,
because
yeah,
you had
funny
a
enough,
daughter?
I don't think any of us planned to be entrepreneurs. At least I didn't when I was a teenager. You know what? I'm born and raised in Calgary, Alberta, from where I'm sitting today, and you know, I am the daughter of immigrants who came to this country. My mom came at 9 years old from India, and my dad came at 21 to marry my mom. They came to Calgary because my dad needed to redo his engineering degree at the University of Calgary because his degree was not recognized. And so when he finished his degree, they had me here. And you know, I had a typical middle class upbringing here in Calgary. And when I was in high school and graduating in grade 12, I was made to be good in math and science. And being the mom of 2 little girls myself, I purposely say the word made because I know how much effort my parents now put into making sure the math and science was important and I was good at it. And so in Calgary, if you are good at math and science, you become an engineer and you work in the energy business, in the oil patch. And so that's what I really thought that my life and my career would lead me. And so I started my first year at the U of C studying engineering. And it was quite interesting, but quite challenging nonetheless. And so I decided not to take summer classes. I decided I wanted to learn what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And so I wanted to intern as an engineer in the oil patch. And while very quickly I discovered that no oil and gas company wants a first-year engineering student because, well, we really don't know very much at that point. It's all theory. And so they all said no to me. And what happened was I actually went to my dad. And some of you might know, you might not know, that in Alberta in 1993, we had a premier who privatized the retail liquor industry, which still means that all these years later, that we are the only province in this country that has privatized retail liquor. So the government does not own the liquor stores in this province. And so in that year, there was a downturn in the oil patch. And my dad got laid off after almost 14 years of service to Pan Canadian, one of the biggest oil companies in Calgary. And so he didn't know what he was going to do, but he knew he had to pay the mortgage and put food on the table because my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And so, you know, we had a single income in this household. And so my dad decided to take a leap of faith on the nudging of a friend and become an entrepreneur and open a liquor store. And I, growing up, I was 13 then. In my teenage years, I worked at the liquor stores, stocking shelves, helping carry up alcohol to patrons' cars, selling and learning a lot about selling and about liquor in general and about entrepreneurship. And I was very fortunate to be able to do so. And so then what happened when after my first year of engineering, I started to work in his wholesale division. And that really made me come up with a brilliant idea, which was private brand spirits for my parents' liquor stores. They had 3 of the top liquor stores in Calgary at the time. And I really thought that that could give them the edge on their retail and wholesale business. So I tried to convince my brother. Wasn't too hard to convince him that we should get into this. I sold the idea to my dad over the dinner table because back then, family dinner was really important. Over COVID, I'm really trying to reinstate that with my own family. One of the bonuses of finally being home all the time. But my dad said, sure, but you need to come back to me with a businest plan. And well, I had no idea what a business plan was because I never took any business courses. And so, or accounting courses for that matter, during my first year of engineering or in high school. And so I learned, I Googled, I asked a lot of questions of him, of my dad's accountant, and I came up with a business plan. And the business plan essentially was to have great quality spirits at an everyday low price for OK Liquor Stores. That was the name of his stores. And so I sold him, I got this business plan, I had ideas of what it wanted to look like and where it wanted to be made because we were going to co-pack, I wasn't going to make it myself. And then I decided, okay, great, now I have a customer and I have a product, now I need money to make it. So I did not want to ask my parents. So I went to a bank, and while they were my dad's bankers, I went to 2 banks, and they both, after listening to me for half an hour, said, yeah, great idea. Which 19-year-old wouldn't want to get into the liquor business? Obviously, with a lot of sarcasm. And they said, no, we cannot give you any money because you have no assets either. You live at home. And I thought, oh, okay, interesting. And they said, but listen, both of them said that you can come back with your dad and he can co-sign on the loan and we'd be happy to give you the money. And while I immediately stood up, big ego, definitely back then, said, no, thank you. And to me, essentially, that meant that my dad would be giving me the money if he co-signed on the loan. And first of all, I was a little smarter at math. And I said, well, if I was going to get the money from my dad, essentially, I'd just ask over the dinner table and not have to pay him interest and have the bank in between. But that's not how I wanted to start my business. So I went to my brother and said, what savings do you have? And while he went back to his room, found his bank book. Some of you might remember in the 90s, we had bank books to tell us how much money we had. And he really had nothing. He had peanut dustings. I was the saver, still am definitely in the company. Hence, 20 years later, I'm still in charge of all the financial decisions and sign all of the checks in our company. But we started with the savings that I had, the proceeds of a car that was given to me when I was 16, so my parents could stop driving me around. And putting all that together, it was about $10,000. And that's how we started. And we started as a private label spirits company in 1999. And then a couple of years later, when things were going well for us, and we expanded into the general marketplace in Alberta, not just my parents' stores, we got into beer in 2002. And that is really what catapulted us to the next level as far as a business, as far as revenues, profits, fame, and all that goes. And coincidentally, that's when I finished engineering and was able to put in 100% into my business.
Excellent. That is such an interesting, I was listening to you and you telling your dad your business idea over dinner. And I was like, what? And for you to have so much confidence going to the bank at the age of 19, like for real? Okay, so before things started going well, tell us about those rough times. How rough were the early days of business for you? How were you able to weather those storms?
Yeah, definitely. It was a really tough, not only an industry to get into, because, you know, the alcohol industry is one of the oldest industries on the planet, and it is definitely run by the old boys club. And I was one of the first new entrants into the market, that was, you know, had essentially, and I was told many times, had three notches against me. One, I was young. Two, I was brown, Indian, and the other one, I was a woman. And all three of those were not something that was seen or heard of or was, you know, successful in the alcohol and beer business. Never mind in Canada, but really in North America or anywhere else in the world. And so it was definitely an uphill battle, just even to get meetings. Also, when we started expanding, never mind to get into government listings, because across this country, you have to deal with governments. And so there was definitely a lot of banging on doors over and over again, getting super creative, how to get people's attentions to even get the meeting. But then once I got the meeting, definitely, you know, I always felt in one ear and out the other, they were just taking the meeting in order to just check mark that they were taking it, and that I wouldn't go complain to the media and or, you know, their bosses or anybody else that you know, nobody was paying attention. And so I started getting a lot of rejections based on supposed merit, that, you know what, it's not what we need right now. It's not enough margin. It doesn't have any traction in other areas. I don't have numbers to prove it, like every excuse in the book in order not to list our products. And so, you know what, we started getting creative. What we started doing was doing grassroots marketing. We started doing advertising campaigns that were really grassroots, that had us in the commercials, my brother especially, and just making a lot of noise and making fun of everybody else in this supposedly serious business. And so that started getting people's attention. But also what we started doing was lobbying and doing government relations, and trying definitely as hard as we could to tell our story to those who are making decisions and who really matter in government, that are at the top level, not just buyers, because we weren't getting anywhere with them. And you know what, I learned a lot about not only the way municipal, provincial, and federal politics and governments work in a lot of different ways very quickly. I hired a consultant to teach me a lot, but you know what? It was me retelling my own story. And I think that that is the most powerful thing that we can do as entrepreneurs. It is tell our story, not only about who we are and what our companies are doing, but also about our products and why people need them. And I think that that was really, after the many days of crying and the many tough days, I felt I'm gonna give up and just go back to engineering. And I thanked my mom many times for making me finish as a backup plan, because, you know, as an immigrant herself, she understood that the world is not fair and life isn't fair. I was told that by my parents a lot when I was growing up, and I didn't completely understand it until I became an entrepreneur. And yeah, I definitely had to fight stronger and harder and longer than much of my competition. But I also think that that was a blessing. It really made me determined, but it also made me discover that I had those same things that other people call disadvantages that were my advantages, that I was young, a woman, and Indian, and what that had going for me. And that basically that meant that I was going to stand out no matter what. So why not stand out for the right reasons? And yeah, definitely a work ethic, but also, you know what, I discovered that I need all of those things that might seem superficial to people, but were taught to me as a young person by many mentors around me and by my family. One, to be super and always the best researched in the room. I always had the best, and still do, the best presentation. And it was best researched, not only about my own products and what I was presenting, but about everybody around me. And so I became a lot of the go-to for a lot of buyers in my industry, in a lot of retail outlets, to say, hey, what's happening in the industry? What are the other guys doing? What are they doing? And you know what? And they might have not been buying my stuff in the beginning, but they were calling me and understood that I was a wealth of knowledge. And that was really important to make that relationship and that connection with a lot of the buyers that I was looking to sell to. Also, I was always extremely punctual. I am still, despite all the success, I am still early, never on time or late to any meeting. And anybody around me will tell you that, whether it be filming Dragon's Den or whether it be just to a meeting. And you know what, I think always that what makes us look good makes us feel good. And so I was always taught to be proud of your appearance. Many people always say, well, really, in this day and age? And I say, yes, if you look good, you feel good and you are more confident. And I built a really tough skin. And I do applaud those now looking back 2 decades later, for those who gave me that really tough runaround in the beginning, that they helped me build that tough skin and never take no for an answer.
Wow. You know, it takes a startup to know whether a startup is going to fail or succeed. You give them like 3-5 years, right? I know you did mention wanting to give up, your mom encouraging you, letting you know that the world is not fair and life is not fair, right? So
Right.
what was that 1 or 2 things like within you that kept you going, apart from your mom or your brother being there for you? What kept you going, and at what point did you know, yes, this business is going to survive, it's going to scale up? And how were you able to scale it up to move beyond local, to go provincial, to go Canada-wide?
Yeah, you know, I don't think as an entrepreneur you ever think that you've made it. I am a true optimist, and I think that everybody has to be in order to be an entrepreneur. Otherwise, you wouldn't get up in the morning to face the challenges of the day. And so I am an eternal optimist, always have been and always will be, hopefully. So you know what, with that optimism definitely comes the idea that every day is going to be better than the next, and I can take on the challenges of the day. And I don't think you ever think as an entrepreneur, I've made it, I've done it, I'm resting on my laurels, I am successful. I don't ever think that. I'm always reaching for the next thing, the next goal, and my goals are always moving. But I am a really competitive person. And that really has helped me in order, some days, not so much. Some days I think I should be able to sit back and enjoy the success of that day, and whatever, if that brand, I made it, or we made a big sale, or we reached a goal of whatever it might be, whatever the metrics that we're reaching are. But, you know, I do think that you have to focus on the step in front of you, not the whole staircase. Otherwise, you will literally never want to take on the challenges of being an entrepreneur, and can't imagine what 1 or 5 years will look like. Definitely, I goal plan, and I set my 6-month, 1 year, 5 year goals for my personal life, but also for my companies. But it's a subconscious, right? It's goal setting. It's not something that I look at every single day, but I know I have them. But for me, I really do focus on, okay, what is the task of the day and of the week? I'm truly a believer of mastering every single day. And I do that in a variety of different ways. I do that by being extremely scheduled and disciplined. I do that by mastering the big tasks and the big decisions first thing in the morning. I do that by not having any meeting last more than 60 minutes. In my life, because I believe after that, everybody's efficiency, attention span, and the productivity of that meeting go quite downhill. And so I have developed a lot of, I guess, quote unquote, rules that work for me over the last 2 decades. Also that interesting, you know, juggle. I'm a mom of 2 young girls, and that threw a lot of new time constraints, to say the least. You know, a couple of years ago when I had kids. And so it definitely is evolving, but I truly believe in mastering the day. And before you know it, weeks, months, years, and decades in my case will have passed you by, and you'll be able to look back on, wow, okay, year 1, I didn't think I was going to make it. Oh, year 2, year 5, you thought, okay, well, if I was looking back now, the metrics have changed of what my definition of a success is, but also where I'm going with this business. and understanding that the idea and the vision and the dream of the business might have changed and might have pivoted, rightfully so, based on circumstances, on feedback, on what people are wanting and needing, and what you discover your passions for your business might be. And so I do think that the idea that a business is not going to be or going to be successful within 5 years is really not a timeline or a metric that we should use. It should be based on how you feel, what your goals are of that day, and of that time in your life, but also with the business. Yeah, sure, it's important to be able to meet payroll, but that is not the decision that should base you on whether or not you're going to continue with your business or not.
Excellent. So you heard that, ladies. I've got 2 questions here from the women. So Kes wants to know, she's saying, thanks, Manjit, great inspiration. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs trying to cover new grounds? And in light with that question, could you also tell us how you knew you were ready for international market? So 2 questions for you.
Right. So new ground. You never know that you're ready. Okay. But what you do know is that you've outgrown sometimes and saturated the market that you're in. As an entrepreneur, one of the hardest things is to say no, because all you do is see opportunities everywhere in front of you, right? Where other people, your competitors are selling, what other friends and family and colleagues are saying that what you should be doing. Oh, you should be trying this and you should go there and you should expand here into whether it be product lines or whether it be territories or digital or whatever it might be, right? The toughest thing as an entrepreneur is to say, no, I'm focusing on this or this, and the multiples of what that might be. But for us, we discovered that, listen, at a certain point, Canada was just not happening the saturation that we needed. And it was because we couldn't get the government listings in the rest of the country like we wanted. So we decided to go to the United States, where after a lot of research and a lot of talking to distributors and retailers, it was more of a what seemed fair system, which was not based on who you were and what you were, and that you could get a listing from the government. It was based on merit of your product, your price, your company, whether you could deliver. All of the things that we knew we could do, and not based on, well, let's face it, who owned our company and how long we'd been around. And so we decided to go into the United States, knowing that it would be more costly, it would be more cutthroat as far as competitiveness goes, but we needed to do it in order to survive, because just one province wasn't going to not only take the company into the next level, but in order to get into the other provinces, we needed to have what they said as backup, as far as numbers and as far as growth and all of that kind of stuff goes. So we took on the American market, and it was definitely a huge challenge. We immersed ourselves into it. I was definitely on the road, constantly learning, evolving our business plan and our products based on what was needed with the price point, marketing, picking the right distributors, etc., etc. But you never know. The answer is really short. You never know when you are ready, because you won't be ready until you jump in with both feet. And I do believe that you do have to jump in with both feet and with everything that you have, as far as your teams, your money, your energy, because you're only new once, okay? And when you're only new once, you essentially get one shot at it. And so that really is important, to make that great first impression, to quickly decide whether or not you need to move on, adjusting packaging, product, service, pricing, your distributors, the way you're actually getting the product out to market, shelving. Like, there's so many things that you need to be able to adjust quickly. And the only way you can do that is if you are on boots on the ground and actually listening to feedback of your customers, of your buyers. But you know what? You're never ready. When we expanded to the United States, it was definitely daunting. But once we did it successfully in a couple different territories and states, then we thought, okay, now let's speed this up, because we don't want others to come in to take our spot into other areas. And we had that momentum. Momentum is extremely important too for you and your team. It can also build a big ego, wrongfully so, to make you think like you can't do anything wrong, which is definitely not the case. But momentum is really important also. And with that momentum, after expanding into some states in the United States, we started getting listings in Canada. And then we thought, you know what, the world is at our oyster. And we started knocking on doors and selling to international markets. But it's also interesting how we were not fearful of asking all of a sudden. I was never fearful of the cold call, but I was definitely not one who asked others to connect to me. I always went in literally cold calling. And one thing I really learned was that relationship building and asking somebody to advocate on your behalf. The idea not only of a mentor, but of a sponsor, right? To say, great, can you introduce me to XYZ in a specific country, in a buyer in a different retailer? Because you'll discover that your industry, whatever that is a really small world after all. And it's the same people that move around within the same companies, and also the same individuals who are your competitors, but also really just the people that count in an industry are the same over years and years and years. And so it is important, I discovered, to build networks, to get out there and to build relationships and friendships with people in my industry. And because before that, I was definitely, a head down behind my computer in the office kind of person. Whereas I decided, no, I'm going to be the one out there. And so I, every night, would be out at different events, meeting different people, having dinner with others, whether or not it was to reach an end goal. But you know what, in the end of the day, they've all become individuals that I've been able to look back on or count on for different reasons. And you never know beforehand what somebody might come in handy for later, or what you might need to give them a call for to get some insight, to get an opinion, to make a contact with. And I never noticed that as much as I did and have the last 6 years on Dragon's Den, investing in 31 companies that are not in the liquor and beverage space. So reaching and out to others that are in, other industries that I knew nothing about, but all of a sudden thinking, I can sell something to Canadian Tire or Indigo. I can sell them alcohol before, but hey, I can sell them party skirts or, baby products or whatever it might be, or just to get their opinion. And so I think that it's really important that you realize that you'll never be ready, but you have to build that foundation slowly but surely in order to get there. But then when you do, you got to jump in with both feet.
Excellent. Got to jump in with both feet. You can never be ready. So this is from Thurfini. She says, I appreciate and value your confidence when you're speaking about yourself. It's so refreshing. Do you find that this is an imperative aspect of success for entrepreneurs, especially females in business?
Yes, I agree. I think that, you train people how to treat you. And if you don't feel confident within your own skin, within your own abilities, within your own talent, how will others believe what you have to offer is something that they want to buy into? And so, very early on, I discovered that, I do have some talents. I don't know it all. And what I don't know, I ask, and I get, people around me that know better than me. But what I am good at, I have to be confident at and understand that I am good at that. And so I do believe that confidence is such an important aspect of how we not only present ourselves, but what we think of how we can be successful as entrepreneurs and as business owners, but also believe in our ideas and our vision of who and what we want to be. But that definitely doesn't come overnight. That definitely comes with having great people around you, friends and family that support you. So when I was growing up, my grandfather always used to say to me, you are the average sum of the 5 people around you, the closest 5 people. And I always used to think that's a crazy thing to say. And I really discovered that not only as an adult, I look around at my 5 closest girlfriends, my 5 closest family members, my 5 closest colleagues at work. And I think to myself, well, how are they different and what energy do they give me that I don't necessarily have, but what do I learn from them? And you know what, I always look at those specific 3 groups of my life and say, well, they're all really positive. They're all really optimistic. And they're always trying new things. You know what, I say this to my kids all the time, be brave enough to suck at something new. And I think you can only do that if you have a support group around you to say, if you fail, which you will, trust me, that you have others around you to say, to dust you off, to pick you up, to say, it's okay, it's not the end of the world, but hey, maybe you learned something along the way. But it is important to try new things and get uncomfortable and to be brave enough to suck at something new in order to build that confidence, because you know what? You might not suck, you might be really good at it. And I think maybe even during this pandemic, we've all discovered at things that we are maybe good at, that we never have tried even before because we were too scared. So I am definitely one that doesn't let fear stop me. I believe that everybody needs to be courageous. And that doesn't mean that you don't get scared, because trust me, I get scared a lot. I'm just really good at not showing it. The butterflies in my stomach and all of that definitely happens to me too. But I do believe fear, being courageous means that fear, you don't let fear stop you, that you keep moving forward and don't stop because you're scared. Being scared is a natural and a good emotion to have because it makes us consider the risk that we're taking, but it shouldn't stop us by any means from taking on new tasks and to challenge ourselves and to get uncomfortable. So as a motto in life, always, 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 I have always tried to get uncomfortable every day. And that's not always possible, I get, but it's a goal of mine every day. And I do it by, you know, trying, even the simplest thing is trying a new outfit that I wouldn't try on the rack, trying some new food, trying to do things that I wouldn't necessarily do. Even simplest as watching a TV show that I might brush off as too scary. I'm not a horror fan. Silly, whether it be some reality TV, whether it be sports that I don't understand because my husband's a sport fanatic. The other day he was trying to teach me, the rules of a really silly sport. But regardless, it's about getting out and trying something new as often as you can, even if it's for 20 minutes that gets you uncomfortable. You might discover that, hey, you actually were right and you don't like that or not good at it, but you might discover the other way around too.
Amazing. Now, your comfort zone. So there's a question here for you. How did you get the opportunity to be called to Dragon's Den? I knew someone was going to ask that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's not a really great story, but a story nonetheless, I guess. So 6 years ago, I got a call, and funny enough, one of the producers of the show somehow got the phone number of my parents' house. And I was at my parents' house. It was late afternoon, about 4 o'clock. And I was at my parents' house and I picked up the phone. And the guy on the other side says, hey, I'm XYZ. I'm a producer at Dragon's Den. Do you know the show? And I said, yes, of course I know the show. And I said, first of all, how'd you get my parents' house number? And they said, oh, is this your parents' house? Sorry, we had this number somehow in the CBC archives from CBC Calgary, maybe for some interview you did early on, probably when I was living at home. And so nice to know that, my parents' number hasn't changed ever. And so he said, listen, we've got a seat available and we're doing some screen tests and auditions for new dragons. Would you be interested? And I said, well, you know what? I've got a lot of things going on right now. I don't really know. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I thought to myself, oh, I don't know about that. I said, but you know what? Let me think about it and get back to you. He said, well, listen, we need to know your decision pretty quickly because it's on Monday morning, our auditions and our screen tests, because we go into filming very shortly. And I said, okay, well, I'll get back to you tomorrow. And by chance that night, everybody was at my parents' house for dinner. And I told everybody that, hey, I got a call. I knew a lot of the past dragons. Canada is a small world after all. And I know they all really enjoyed their experience. on the show. And so I thought to myself, well, let me give them a call. I called 5 of them up that I could get a hold of that night, and they all had only great things to say about it. And I thought, okay, well, interesting. But I thought, you know what, this is going to be so much time that I'm going to take out of the company. Also, what are my 2 little kids? Like, I have to move to Toronto for a month. And so I called them and said, you know what, I don't think so. But my brother called them before I said I don't think so. And he said, yeah, she'll be there. And so he convinced me then to say, you gotta go. And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, listen, everything else that has come to us. He said, everything else that has come to us in life is an opportunity. We didn't expect most of it. But you have to take this opportunity, not only for you and your girls, to be able to see somebody like you on TV making decisions. Because look at that panel the last 9 years at that point. It is all, let's face it, white and old, and it doesn't represent any new industries. And you are breaking the mold, but also more representative of what Canada looks like and what entrepreneurship looks like. You need to go there, not only for your own girls, but for all girls and boys out there. And I thought, okay, well, that's putting a lot of, you know, weight on and stress on my shoulders. I was never in the public before. Sure, I'd done media interviews and this and that before, but nothing of this scale. And so I thought, okay, fine, I'll go for the screen test, thinking there was going to be 12 other amazing Canadians there. They're not going to pick me. So he said, okay, so I got my assistant to book my flight, but he got my assistant to also book my dad's flight with me. I did not know that until I was at the airport. And he really thought that I would go and that to Toronto, but probably not go to the screen test, which he was probably right about. So he sent my dad as the chauffeur to take me down there to make sure I actually went. And so it was great. My dad and I went on Sunday. On Monday morning, my dad accompanied me to studio, which was really rare because he hadn't traveled with me for a while, actually, before that. So I went. It was about an hour and a half. There definitely was 11 other, there's 12 of us total, other amazing Canadians that I recognized that had done great things in this country. And I thought, they'll never call me back. But you know what? I did. They showed us 3 pitches. They didn't give us any instructions. And they said, just be you. And that's exactly what I was. I was me. And they called me the day after and said, we'd love to have you on the show. You are so authentic and you don't really hold anything back. And that's what we're looking for. And that's what our audience wants to hear. And I said, okay, now let me think of these logistics. So I convened my executive at the company and my family. And I said, okay, like this is going to be a wholehearted effort on both sides because I'm going to be gone for a month. And in that month, like we shoot 11 hours a day. We get in at 7 a.m. and we finish at 6 every day. And to focus on what I'm doing in studio, I cannot be involved in like all the other things going on both fronts. And so they all said, yeah, we'll be there for you. We'll be there for you. No problem. You got to go. You got to go. So 2 weeks later, I packed up and I went and I took my girls with me. My family definitely came too. It was interesting because CBC had never had a dragon that had a young family before. So definitely there was a lot of negotiating with them pre-contract because I was really cognizant of the fact that I didn't want my girls to be ever shown or ever talked about in specific because they were so young. And they were really good about that. But also there was a lot of things that were important to me. And so the biggest fight that I've had, I would say, with CBC in the 6 years was my first outfit that I wore. And some people, when I tell people that story, they're always like, really? Out of all the things, and I say, well, yes. There were, and because to me, it was really important. In order for me to sit in that chair and be authentically me, I needed to look like me too. And not look like who they wanted me, their stylist wanted me to look like, which was, you know, a boring black pantsuit. And I was like, not happening. I love color. I am feminine. I am definitely petite, but I love fashion. And that is me. And if I'm going to sit there, that is all going to be me also. And oh my goodness, from producers to cameramen to editors to, oh my God, the fight that ensued on me not wearing a dress. And I said, well, I'm not sitting there until I wear a dress. And it went back and forth for days while I was there. And finally, the night before shooting, I got to wear a red Victoria Beckham dress. And they were all in awe, in shock, because they never let Arlene or Jennifer before her wear anything but pants. And they had a million excuses as to why. All of them stupid, of course. But yeah, interestingly enough, that was where I literally dug my heels in and said, no, I'm not sitting on that chair Monday morning without me being able to look like me. And so interestingly enough, yeah, thank you. And so interestingly enough, after that, last year, I said, oh, I'm going to switch it up and wear pants. And they were like, no, 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 you know, you can. You're the one always in a dress and in color and et cetera, et cetera. And so I just did that to, you know, fool them, because I do love dresses. But it was interesting how that I had to stand, I felt, to be authentically me in day one, because I did always feel that they've been a great network after that, but they were used to something. And I think that is also something that we are battling as, you know, minority women all the time in entrepreneurship, is that they are used to something and what something should look like and be like and presented like. But it's up to us to bring us and uniquely us. I couldn't believe how many stories were written after my first year 6 years ago on my wardrobe. And I thought, wow, okay, there's a lot more going on there. And then people started, you know, calling me too tough and a variety of different things. But after the first year, all that settled down, when people discovered that, you know, that was me. That's how, what I think, in my opinion, and I wasn't scared to say so. And I think that has been really rewarding, in a sense, when I get a lot of messages, especially from young girls and boys that message me or see me on the street all the time and say, oh my God, yay, somebody that actually says what they believe, even if it isn't, you know, politically correct. And always that it is, I truly believe in being brutally honest, whether or not it might come across as tough, but you know what, the world is tough. And I think that we don't do anybody favors, especially in business, when we sugarcoat things and say that you're great, it's great, but no, thank you, I won't buy it, or I won't be involved. Well, obviously it's not as great as you're saying it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely sold right now, because you've got a lot of people liking you right now. Like, the comments are just coming, like, authentic.
Oh,
they love you. And Jessica is saying she loves that dress. The picture is in her mind right now. She's saying you rock dragons then in that red dress.
Thanks. You know, it and one day when I write a book, I will go into the details of what happened and how, but in the end, it was quite it might seem like a small victory, but to me, it definitely was a victory. And then I was happy to say afterwards that, you know, we mixed it up a bit. But it was, I think, an evolution to represent, more importantly, what Canada looks like to me, right? As far as that it is a diverse country, and I think we have to take each other's opinions and respect each other and what everybody brings to the table that is different, and more and more so now. But it was something that I was very passionate to stand for 6 years ago, when it wasn't on the forefront of what people were thinking about. But I think subconsciously, a lot of people did see that, who wanted to see that when I was brought on the show. But also, one of those things that I openly, you know, acknowledge. I sit on a lot of high-profile boards in this country, also. You know, and whether they be charity boards like the United Way, and a lot of financial public and private boards. And initially, I used to always think that, they're just asking me because they're checking, you know, the box of diversity and inclusion, or my age, that, you know, in the 30s, whereas everybody else in their 60s, 70s, 80s usually. And so I thought, okay, but listen, you know what? It's okay. Well, I got my foot in the door somehow. And whatever, if I checked a box for them, I will take it. You know what? But I will get to that table, and then I will prove that I should have been at this table already, regardless of that they were trying to check a box to begin with. So I do believe that you do have to take what comes to you and opportunities based on a variety of different things. But understand that you might have not got there initially how you thought you would have, but if you get there, then it is up to you to prove that you deserve to be there, to stay there, and that you have a voice that needs to be heard. And now, yeah, I'm in a privileged position that often I can, ask or be brought onto boards and tables, or buy my way, let's face it, onto many tables that I feel that I want to be a part of, that can change, the conversation, but also a lot of different things behind the scenes that happen with a lot of large companies, or governments for that matter, and decisions that are made that a lot of people don't really know that affect them. And so I think that it is all of our jobs to bring people with us, women with us, and help make that table more diverse of thought, diverse of looks, men, women, age, a lot of different things, right? And I think that for those of us who have made it, whatever that means, it is important for us to bring everybody along with us and give them that helping hand, to mentor them, to guide them, to pull out a chair and say, okay, show me what you can do. And so that is a big part of what I do quietly and behind the scenes, because I think that doesn't always need to be screamed from the rooftops. But I do believe that women do have to help women and empower them as much as possible. And especially young women, because I think that they're finding their way still. And that is really important. Also, just in this quick side note, because I see our time coming to an end, is that a lot of people also ask recently, especially in the last 6 months-ish during this lockdown and pandemic, that how do I not make a mistake? How do I make good decisions? And well, to be honest, there's only one way to make good decisions. Good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from making bad decisions. And so the only way to make good decisions is to try a lot of things and to make mistakes and understand that it's not the end of the world, that you will fail, you will make the wrong decisions, but you got to quickly be able to pick yourself up and move on from them. Learn from those decisions. Definitely, there's always learnings from those bad decisions and those mistakes that we all make. But in the end of the day, know that they're not finale. It's not the end of your story when you make a bad decision. And so what a good decision might look like today might not be so, tomorrow or in 5 years. I've always also lived by the motto, and I teach my kids this all the time, even though for them it's a lifetime, is that don't spend more than 5 minutes on something that won't matter in 5 years. For them, that seems like a lifetime, I understand. But for me, not so much anymore, And it's really important to understand not to dwell on the small things. You need to make decisions. You need to make them quickly based on facts, based on what the sacrifice might be and the risks. Understand all of the parameters when you're making a decision, but not to dwell on the decisions too much, because most of them are reversible. They're not finite decisions. And if they're not going to matter in 5 years. And so I think that, the bigger perspective of understanding and putting the weight on all the decisions that we make as entrepreneurs and as business people and in our careers even, are not as finite as you think they are. And a good decision is a decision nonetheless.
You're speaking the mind of the Sedulous woman right here. Like a lot of the things you said in the last 5 minutes, that's the vision that we have for the Sedulous women. We always tell our women that we don't believe in the girl boss, statement anymore. We believe that the Sedulous woman is a woman that holds the hand of the next person beside her, and not only holding our hand, but saying, you know what, we're going to climb to the top together. It's beyond the age of watch me, go on my page, just watch my videos or read my books and just do what I said in it. No, it's beyond that now. It's now a time for us to hold the hand of the younger one, the hand of the next person beside you, whether you know them or not, whether they are your race or not, whether they come from where you
Right.
were born or not, and climb that ladder of success together. It's beyond cultural integration now. It's now, what's the cultural had you're bringing in? What cultural had are you bringing? And that's what you did on Dragons Den. You brought that culture, that uniqueness, that you didn't want to leave yourself behind. You didn't
Right.
want
I
to,
agree.
you didn't want to leave everything about Manjit at the door and enter the Dragons Den as a Canadian the way they wanted. You wanted to go in the way you, Manjit, is. And I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for leading. When people like
Thank you.
yourself, when a woman like yourself lead, then we know that we have to follow. So thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. And I truly believe, kind of bringing that full circle is the power of mentorship. I have many mentors in my life right now, still in my personal life and in my business life. They have evolved and changed as I and my needs have evolved and changed over the last 20 years, both in my personal life and my business life. And I'm a mentor to many young women also, because I do believe that we all need an ear to listen to us. We need a brain to pick, and sometimes we need a push in the right direction. So I really do strongly recommend that everybody today, if you don't have mentors in your life, find them. Find people that you admire, that you want to learn from. And don't take no for an answer. And I'm saying that, and I don't want everybody trying to ask me, but when I say that, but if you do have to get creative to get people that you want to learn from around you. And it is really important, the power of mentorship. Because we can't do it on our own, whatever it might be. And we learn from those around us. And I think it's so, so important. The first time I found my first mentor, he wasn't in my business life. He was a male. He actually owned and still owns one of the largest family-owned distilleries in Kentucky. And I'll tell you, the way I got him to be my mentor was a long, tough journey. It involved stalking him outside of washrooms at conferences, showing up to Kentucky every 3 months with barely any money and time and information about the industry, and as a startup when I started, and it took me a good over a year actually in order to get him to be on side. But Max is one of my best friends now, not a mentor anymore, because now we definitely have partnerships. And I wouldn't say I've outgrown him, but my needs as a business mentor has changed. But it is important for you, just as you fight for your companies and your career, you do have to fight for those that you want in your life. And I believe fighting for great mentors around you is extremely important, men and women, but people that you want to learn from and admire their career path or their knowledge or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. I believe in the power of mentorship. I asked somebody recently, so I'm going to take your advice. I'm not going to take no. She did say no, but I'm not going to take no. So Baba today here is asking, in an age where youth in business is celebrated, what is your advice for older people in business?
Oh, I honestly think you're never too young or never too old to be an entrepreneur and to start a business and a vision. I think we can all come up with amazing success stories of people who started later in life entrepreneurship. And I think that, you have the guidance and you have the knowledge and the wisdom that you don't have as a younger person. And so I say, don't let age ever stop you from doing anything. I think that as you're older, you make more sound decisions. And I think that you also, one thing I do say though, is that it's important not to overthink all of those decisions and knowing that world and life isn't fair, that you won't be able to make it. I think that a lot of older people think of all of the negatives and the things working against them rather than for them. And so, you know, that's the difference when you're young. When I was 19, I was super naive to the world. I just thought I was the best and had the best vodka and like everything was just going to go my way, right? Whereas when you're older, you know that that's not the case. But you have other wisdoms, you have, you know, that younger people don't have. And often you have better connections and you're more refined and you've just got all of those things that, trust me, a 19-year-old does not have. And so I think you should use those to your advantages. And I, you know what, recently I saw a couple lists of the top 7 over 70 instead of the top 40 under 40 kind of thing, right? And I thought that that was fabulous. Because it is so important that you're able to bring a lot of your own talents and experiences, knowing what the market and your potential customers might want and what you're passionate and good at. And so I think that there is no finite time to start to be an entrepreneur.
Excellent. There's one thing I want to talk about before this segment is over. That's financing. Do you have investors in your business? And at what point in time did you realize you needed investors to come on board? If you don't, what's your take on bringing investors into business, and what should a startup look out for in an investor?
Right, so I don't have investors. We, like I said, started with $10,000. I've always reinvested the profits back into the company, and we don't. So my brother and I own 50-50. Everything that we own, from our breweries, distilleries, trucking companies, design companies, film companies, we own glass blowing companies. We are very vertically integrated in the spirits and beer business. We do and produce everything ourselves other than the hops and the wheat and the aluminum can. No, we don't have investors. But do I think it's the time? I think now is different than it was 20 years ago. Listen, when we started, there was no such thing as venture capitalists. Like, that's why I said I had to go to a bank, because they were the only ones that would potentially give me money. And so the world is different now, though. And I do believe that investors are good for a variety of reasons. Not only because I'm an investor and love being a part of a lot of others' startups, journeys, and businesses, but I do believe that it can not only give you cash, but it can give you that knowledge, that connections. It can also give you a little bit of a roadmap without you having to make the same mistakes as just a pure startup and being in your own box and bubble. And so I think getting investors is a great idea. I believe that you have to be also very conscious of how much you're willing to give up for that investment, because it really drives me nuts when people want to raise 5, 10, 20, $100 million and they just want money, but they don't understand that for that they're giving away a ton of their company. And if it is successful, well, you got a little piece of the pie. I would rather have 90% of a watermelon than 10% of a grape, kind of thing, right? I'd rather have more, sorry, the other way around. I'd rather have 90% of a grape than 10% of a watermelon. And that is really important. I believe that when you're getting investors on board, you have to be very conscious of who you're getting on board and what they bring to the table, but also what you're willing to give up as far as equity, royalty, however the deal is structured, and understanding what that win-win situation will look like. But I also believe that if you're not looking for individual investors and you're just looking for cash flow and you feel that you don't need that, you know what? Interest rates are at the lowest they have ever been. This is the time to go to a bank. And I'm not only saying that because I'm on the board of one of the biggest banks in the country. I'm saying that because I know that it is a great time in order to get credit from financial institutions. It's widely available, it's super cheap, and then you are in the control of your own destiny. So I think there's lots of ways in order to get capital and to raise capital. You just have to decide what is right for you and what you're willing to give up for it. Because let's face it, it comes at a cost.
That sounds fair. Yeah, that sounds fair. Let me quickly go to the comment section and see if there is a question. Don't think so. Okay, this is Stephanie saying best quote of the day. They had many reasons, all of them stupid. Taking that quote with me for the rest of my life. So
Good to
a lot
hear.
of people taking away quotes from you. My book is
Perfect.
filled up. Okay.
Sounds good. So I will leave you with one last quote today in my wrap up. And this quote, if I could take you for a walk around my Calgary office, it is plastered on the wall around our marketing and our sales divisions. And it is, you don't get what you deserve in life, you get what you negotiate. And I am a true believer, the foundation of my success and my team's success is the ability and the power of negotiation. So everybody who comes into our company, it doesn't matter who you are, a sales rep, a marketing rep, an accountant, well, of course, if you're a lawyer, it doesn't matter who you are. Even our brewmasters, for goodness sakes, they all take negotiation courses. And the reason they do that is because everybody is in power of their own position and they're always buying and negotiating something for our company. And let's face it, we all negotiate in our personal lives too. I was negotiating with my 8-year-old this morning about what she was going to wear. I lost the negotiation, but nevertheless, I was negotiating with her. And so, but I, won the negotiation with my husband last night as to where we're going to dinner tonight. But it is one of those things that we're always negotiating in our personal life and always negotiating in our business life and in our career. And so why not do that consciously? We are never taught, or it's never talked about, that we should negotiate and how to do it. So, everybody in our company takes the KARASS, K-A-R-A-S-S, negotiating course when they start. And then after that, even to this day, it's literally the only course and things that I do every 6 months. And I do it in different ways. I read negotiating books, a lot of good ones out there. And I take courses online, I take courses in person. There's so many different ways to learn negotiating and all the tactics and the talents, because none of us are born with that talent. We all do have to learn it. And then you have to continue in order to get better at it and to refine your skills and to reverse your skills. Because let's face it, a lot of the people you negotiate with in your life, at home or in your career and in your business, are the same people. And so you do got to mix it up a bit. But it is so important to understand what the give and the take is. What are you willing to give up? What are you not? What are your non-negotiables in a negotiation? And I feel that only lawyers are taught that in our society. But it's really important that we all take that, because no matter what you're doing, it's so important that when you make decisions and when you are negotiating, nobody wants to call it negotiating anymore. They like to call it the art of persuasion. Whatever fancy words you use for it, in the end of the day, you need to come and get what you need out of a company and individual. And how do you go about that? There is a science, there is a skill set there. So I'm going to leave you with that quote, that you don't get what you deserve in life, you get what you negotiate.
Exactly. So what's your advice, Manjit? What's your advice for every immigrant, second, third generation of immigrant women that are here today, wishing to rise to the top of success, just like yourself?
Well, that I don't like to give blanket statements like that. I think everybody is on their own journey. And I think that it's really your own definition of success, what success is. To me, when I was 19, my definition of success that was written everywhere and posted everywhere was $1 million in the bank. Well, when I was getting close to that, all of a sudden that didn't mean success to me. A variety of other things did. Having a brand, having this, and when then it was on my definition of success was having a healthy marriage. And then it was, having kids and having a family and having maybe some work-life balance, which I discovered was total bullshit later, but being happy. And so the definition of success for everybody at different times is different. When the pandemic started, all of a sudden my definition of success was I want to be able to help my community out as much as I can. And that meant for us pausing all 4 distilleries that we own in North America from making a vodka and whiskey to making hand sanitizer. And so, that was my definition of success when I started on March 20th to make 1 million bottles. Well, we've made 18 million bottles and counting still. And so, your definition of success changes based on what's going on. And I think that is important for you to identify that and realize that it's not only how much money is in the bank. There is a lot of other definitions surrounding that. Because trust me, whether it's 1, 10, or $100 million in the bank, it won't make you happy the more of the zeros there are on it. And I know a lot of people say, oh, well, that's easy to say when you have it. Yeah, I guess. I get that too. However, trust me, it's not the only definition of success, especially as you get older. And start to realize that there's a lot of other things that contribute to what a successful life means. So I would say, define your own success and keep changing it, because you as a person keep evolving too.
And the last question here, Kunle would like to know, what's your business pet peeve?
Oh my goodness. I have a lot to pick just one. Goodness. Let's see, what's my business pet peeve? Well, I hate when they present, but also just in general life, when people just use buzzwords all the time. Like, I'm so tired of the word pivot. You notice I did not use the word because I hate it. I think that, we all as entrepreneurs are always pivoting, which just means that we're listening to our consumers' demands and we're listening to the feedback, right? But, I have a lot. But in the end of the day, I think that it's just what isn't authentic, that is just what people want to hear, is one of my pet peeves, is that when you are doing something because you think that other people, it's what they want to hear and what they want you to do, but it's not really what your talent, skill, or vision is. It's just not authentic. And very quickly, you discover people can see through that. And my other pet peeve anybody will know around me is that if you're ever late, I hate people that are, or unless, Air Canada makes me late or makes the other person late. I always joke with Kaylin that you're the one that I will take, he's the CEO of Air Canada, that you're the only excuse I take from people if they're ever late to a meeting with me. Because it means that you don't respect me and my time, and vice versa. If I am doing that to you, it doesn't matter who and what we're discussing. It's just a matter of respect. And I know it's a little old school, but it was the way I was raised.
What is the one thing a startup should never do in business?
I don't think a startup should ever spend more money than they have. I never think you should go into debt when you start.
Why though? I want to scale up. I want to get more product. I want to have more lines of product, right? So why?
Right. But if you are always just worried about paying off that debt, you will never be able to focus on how to grow that business. I truly believe that that you have to be able to focus on the right things and how to grow your business and build those relationships, get the best product and, the supply chain and all those great things. But if you're just worried about how to cover the interest and how to pay that debt back every week or month when it's due, your focus and your energy, and so much of success is where your energy is spent. If it's spent on the bank account, trust me, it zaps so much of your energy. So I always say to startups, do not spend more than you have, and do not go into massive debt to begin with. And even if you have a big PO, there's lots of ways to fund a PO and that don't take you into massive debt. And to me, a debt isn't necessarily, credit cards or line of credit, but there's a lot of other ways that people take on massive debt that they just will never, the math will never work unless they're a unicorn, which, let's face it, is called a unicorn for a reason, is going to happen. And I don't think the media does us any service as entrepreneurs when they talk about the unicorns, which are literally the 1 in the trillion, because that's not how anybody's business goes. Nobody's business is a straight line up. Nobody's, even mine. Or, you know, I was talking to Richard Branson a couple years ago, and it's one of the biggest things that annoys him too, is that everybody thinks that Virgin went like, he's like, you know how long I've been at this and how many bumps and ups and downs that we've had. And so it doesn't matter whose stories. You think of Amazon, you think of Jeff Bezos, you think of anybody's story, it never goes like this. And so until you hear about it, it might seem that they're overnight success, but trust me, my overnight success has taken 20 years and is still continuing. And it's one of those things that is never overnight. So you'll never get out of massive debt overnight either. And it will something that will be, I believe, loom for a long time.
So finally, what do you expect from Manjit in the next 5 years?
Oh, I never predict. I have plans, but I never talk about them.
Okay,
so
very
wait
nice.
and see. You'll have to wait and see. And to be honest, I say that because I don't even know. If you asked me 6 years ago, I wouldn't say I was be on your TV screen every Thursday night. So, hey, I think that, you know, sure, I have my own plans, but whether or not they come to fruition, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, we're waiting and we're watching. So this brings us to the end of this conversation. It's been wonderful having you, Manjit. We really appreciate all of the, you know, business nuggets, the tips, the guides, the quotes. Thank you. We hope that when we approach you next time, you would humbly answer us. Okay, so at this point,
thanks for having me and thanks for listening.
Perfect. Thank you very much and have yourself a great day.